Reintegration and Aftercare for children who are survivors of sexual exploitation. The webinar will be recorded so that we can also share it with people who were not able to be here today. And I'd like to ask everybody to introduce themselves in the chat. Please state your name and also the organization that you are representing and your position within that organization. Today, this webinar is organized by the Aftercare Network, the Netherlands, and by Free a Girl. My name is Kelly Schut. I am the director of Free a Girl, the Netherlands. We are a Dutch foundation, and our mission is to end the sexual exploitation of all children worldwide. And we believe that every child deserves to grow up in a happy, safe, and healthy environment. And we do so by working with partners across the globe on rescues, on aftercare, on reintegration, and access to justice. And many of our partners are here today. We, as Free Girl, are a member of the Aftercare Network in the Netherlands. The Aftercare Network is a network of Dutch organizations and professionals dedicated to improving the care and support for children without parental care, and also advocating and collaborating to make sure that the international standards and national standards emphasize that children preferably grow up in a family-like setting. We have one coordinator, Patricia van Nieuwenhuizen, who is also here today with us and who worked very hard on also getting this webinar together. So thank you very much, Patricia, for that. The objective of the webinar today is to look at reintegration and aftercare in the context of alternative care options. And we do that by looking at the International Convention on the Rights of the Child, which states that the child should grow up in a family environment, in an atmosphere of happiness, of love, and understanding. And I think everybody here feels also that that's our purpose, to make sure that children can grow up in that environment. This does not mean that a child has an absolute right to a family, but based on the research and also programs that are being implemented, we know that alternative forms of care in a family environment are preferred when a child is placed outside of their home. Of course, this means that there's not a one-size-fits-all solution, that every child is different, that every situation is different, and that it is our focus to make sure that we provide the best care for that particular child. And with this webinar, we hope to learn from organizations and from speakers that have experience with reintegration practices in this context, and find some inspiration on how we can embark on that journey together. Before we start, maybe it's good to define some of these terms, reintegration and aftercare. Of course, there are many definitions, and each of you may work slightly different. But for the purpose of today, with reintegration, we mean any activities that support children to make what is anticipated to be a permanent transition back to his or her family and community. And with aftercare, we mean services that are provided to survivors of sexual exploitation post-rescue. Today's program, we will start by hearing from Rajiv Roy, a professional focusing on violence against children portfolio, leading that at Family for Every Child organization, has a lot of experience in these topics, working in many different countries worldwide, and will also focus on hearing the voices of survivors, which is, of course, one of our utmost priorities. Following that presentation, we'll hear from Rizal Tenorio from the organization Let's Care, on some learnings from the Philippines, because Let's Care has been already making this transition in the last couple of months, and can share with us some of the lessons that they learned and inspire us to do the same. After that, we'll have some breakout sessions where we will discuss together on different topics, on safety during reintegration, on how to deal with stigma within the family, but also within the community, and finally on how we organize post reintegration strategies. And we'll end with some conclusions. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Rajiv. Thank you very much for being here, and very excited to hear your insights into this topic.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you for giving me this opportunity, to interact with such an experienced, I would say, practitioners around the world. So thank you so much, and I'm sure that it's going to be a huge learning for me. Today, basically, we are going to talk about a research that we have done a few years back, which was co-authored, co-produced, co-processed by the survivors. But before I go into that, let me tell you briefly about the organization where I work. So, next slide, please. So, Family for Every Child is an alliance of currently 46 civil society organizations in 38 countries. And we have goals around family separation prevention, how to strengthen families and communities, and also ensuring high quality alternative care when there is a need, and protecting children outside of any kind of care setting. Across the continents, we have our members, and they have a very rich experience and unique understanding on the situation of children and the families in local context, as well as potential solutions and effective interventions for promoting children's care and how to improve the situation. As a global alliance, we work to ensure that more children can grow up safe and protected in families, and be provided with quality alternative care wherever needed. So this is about the organization where we work. Next slide, please. Okay, so today's presentation is about as you have seen the topic, it's hearing the voices of survivor, and it's a research on reintegration from child sexual exploitation. And this presentation is based on 4 research that we did in 3 countries, Nepal, Madagascar, and Uganda, implemented through a project called RISE, funded by OAK. While there are many existing studies on reintegration from child sexual exploitation and also reflecting on the needs of survivors, there was a clear need for engaging children and young people reintegrating from child sexual exploitation as an expert, okay, because they have the experience to recommend improvements in reintegrating services, in reintegration services, programming, and approach. There was also a need to capture the recommendations from male survivors. So often, sometimes we forget about male victims of child sexual exploitation and abuse, along with female survivors. So through this research, we attempted to engage survivors as researchers as well as respondents who co-designed and implemented the research in partnership with 4 organizations, 2 in Nepal, Kumudini and Sath, and in Madagascar, ICPAT France conducted this research, and in Uganda, UYDEL conducted this research. This research took a trauma-informed approach and a rights-based approach in the thinking about engaging and supporting children. This research also explored the recommendations from survivors towards a sustainable reintegration, and it reflects on the important role of caregivers in underpinning the experiences of children who access care. Areas of support that appear to be helpful for children following their experiences of exploitation are also explored. I hope that this webinar will help in bringing about some key issues around strengthening the reintegration program, as well as significance of meaningful participation of children and young people in research focusing of child sexual exploitation and sexual violence in contexts where they are particularly at higher risk of sexual violence. In this research, we have around 61 participants who were children and young people, and all of them were survivors, either reintegrated through these organizations in the communities or in the process of reintegration. So it's a unique mix of the respondents and whose experiences that we try to capture and their recommendations that we try to capture. Next slide, please. So how we engage these survivors? Just a brief glimpse about it. That we did a literature review, and based on that review, we identified 4 themes under which the research should be conducted. And these themes were then tested in different locations through this with these survivors, and each location came up with their own themes. So it's a kind of mix between academic research and research with practitioners and people who are who have the lived experiences. So there are slight variations in each of the country on the themes in which the research was done, but broadly it's revolved around identity, stigma, independence, safety, belongingness, etc. Next slide, please. Why we did this research in a participatory manner, so that we can get more nuanced and contextual understanding of how reintegration was experienced and understood by children themselves. Okay, rather than we from a donor perspective, or we from an implementation organization perspective, how children who are going through or who went through these reintegration experiences, how they experience the process. And then it's co-produced, the questionnaire, the tools, etc. Are co-produced by youth, adult researchers. They refined the research questions. They did data collection, and also to some extent we tried, but again, we could not be that successful because of one reason, that we could not do the data analysis training face to face with them. So that is something that probably next research when we do with these kind of people, we did, that's learning from us for us. Next slide, please. In terms of the findings from this research, and I tried to kind of identify those findings into the themes that has been identified by these survivors. So in on the topic or theme of stigma and discrimination, I'll just read out the quotes, and the presentation is for you to read out. So so one girl from Nepal, for example, said that I was exploited, but they would not say that I was exploited. So there was not direct blame, but they would directly say that I stayed in, the name Maiti Nepal is an organization in Nepal who provides support to trafficked survivors and survivors from commercial sexual exploitation scenarios. and they used to mention Namaiti Nepal. So the name of the organization itself kind of became a taboo in certain uh, girls' life. That if they stayed in that organization, which means they are coming from a different setting. Another girl said that in Madagascar that I stay alone and I'm comfortable. I don't like the fact that they talk about me, accusing me of having many men and drinking alcohol. Okay, so in the society, they are labeled, they face abuse, exclusion, backbiting, not only from communities, but also within their own family. Their parents seem to be ashamed of them. They, the discrimination that they face on daily basis, have a very negative effect on their lives, and it creates hopelessness and pushing them back into the risky behavior. So one of the reasons that why a lot of re-trafficking happens is this also. People are falling out of that safety net again and again because of that unacceptance in the society and stigma and discrimination. Uh, they feel insecure because of the gossiping, and even if they try, there is a higher school dropout rate, the discrimination as well as the economic hardship in the family and the community. Next slide, please. Uh, in terms of a support system, uh, so there are two kind of support system that was identified. One is emotional and practical, which help them in providing the positive change, and another is exploring and empowering the self-worth, so that it helps them to develop solving skills and bring positivity into their life. When it comes to support system at the family level, it was found that family support is very crucial, especially from mothers, because even the fathers are not so inclined to support the girl or the boy or the youth. The mother provides unconditional support. So they are their backbone in that family support. And it was also found that acceptance from the extended family is related to the related to the financial independence that the survivor has. So the survivor has that financial independence, then there is a higher chance of extended family getting accepted. In community, at the community level, in Madagascar, teachers and community officials were reported as being supportive, which is not true in all the settings. Just uh, giving one example here. Social workers and peers were pivotal in their reintegration journey. And it was also found that religious communities, prayers, church provided solace or other means of, religious and spiritual support has also provided a good uh, support to the survivor in making realizing their self-worth and finding peace within, etc. And it was also found that the young people felt that they need to prove that they had changed, and for that they need to go to people or befriend with people, uh, children, youth, adults who in the society seems good boy, good girl. So that kind of notion. So until unless they befriend them, they are not accepted there. Next slide, please. On the theme of financial independence and freedom, it was found that independence by these survivors were defined at both level, at the economic level as well as at the emotional level. Economic, we all know; emotional, in a sense that they can they can believe in themselves, they can find ways to talk about the things, and in a way that they are not judged. And then it was also found that economic independence were done through income generations, is programs, or small businesses, or through jobs. Then, as I was saying earlier, that financial stability or financial independence has the element of having increased acceptance within the families and communities. It was also found that family members or husbands' support in the micro enterprise or in business is also crucial if someone has to attain financial independence. And integration of work in workplace also is very crucial for reintegration. So even if we provide them with the jobs and link them with the job opportunities and place them somewhere, so they are sometimes they are also discriminated there. So that integration within that space is very important. Next slide, please. On the topic of self-esteem and self-reliance, holistic support is required, including life skill support, psychosocial counseling, and education. So one of the key things that came out through this research, that how therapeutic support or psychosocial support is one of the key elements in building that trust that one has to have for a successful reintegration. So that element is something very important. So that helps in self-esteem, confidence, and emotional independence. Encourage the I can do attitude, positive thinking. Sports activities are again beautiful, example of how to foster self-esteem, safety, and acceptance. It was also found that uh, that relationship building is a tedious task, especially when you are reintegrating, and it requires effort. However, when it's done, it leads to positive outcomes, including improved status. And then discipline and mentorship, again, self-discipline as well as the mentorship through caregivers within the family are crucial pillars in this reintegration process. Next slide, please. This is a separate, topic that we did this research in Nepal and also in Uganda, where we talked with boys who face commercial sexual exploitation, or who were sexually abused and in the process of reintegration. And it was found that boys also need support. They experience sexual abuse, which is not again recognized, and they are abused by relative, friends, colleagues. They are not able to resist or share their experiences because of the taboos of masculinities that are with them. And because of that only, there is a fear of blame, and that silences them. And they are, into that depression state or distress state for a number of years. One particular example was that the Nepali society is unaware that it's from that society, but I think it's a common knowledge that boys' vulnerability to sexual exploitation is something that is not well recognized, and even the NGO practitioners are also not very much aware about this. We then on identity crisis, then there are identity crisis. So they lose because they can't talk man to man or in person. So they go to online and find people there to talk about it, and therefore they are again in that risk zone of getting exploited online or offline. Then there is a fear of community stigma discrimination, which is again true for both girls and boys. Community perception is again crucial. Self-acceptance, again very much similar to what we talked about girls. And independence and motivation, it was found that boys took time to cope with the abuse. First, because they don't realize that it has happened to them. When they realize how it can happen to them, they are men, they are boys, they are providers. Okay, so they took a lot of time to cope up with that kind of emotional stress. But if the parents are accepting, especially mothers, again in this case, they are motivated. And financial independence, again in this case, also reduces the exploitation risk. Next slide, please. Now we come to the key recommendations from this research. Next slide. On improving services, the common challenges that were identified was the lack of support from family regarding stigma and discrimination. So the recommendations that, and I would emphasize that provided by the survivors themselves, that they demanded a package to prepare the parents to accept their children. Now that this package includes a lot of things, not only financial independence, some livelihood support, counseling with the parents, counseling with the survivor, etc. Okay, and this includes community awareness, also community counseling as well. Then at the community level, again, orientation of sexual abuse, child rights, etc., psychosocial counseling, and life skill is a must. As some organizations are seen in that research, it was found that some organizations are seen that they are not providing psychosocial support. They are just, it's a kind of, you are telling them what to do, okay, in the name of counseling. So the psychosocial counseling was not there. It's a kind of, again, a kind of a patriarchal approach that this is what I feel good. So I think it's good for you, so you need to do that. So that is something that needs to be changed. And important aspect again is that there should be continuity in care across all points of their journey: source, destination, and transit. Okay. When I say continuity of care, it means that every time when a child visits into a new place in their journey, so from destination, after getting rescued, at the destination they shared some information, they got get some services, they were provided with psychosocial counseling. When they come to transit place, it's again start from zero. So that communication is not happening, coordination is not happening between the organizations, between destination and source, transit. And then again, the same thing happens between transit and source. Okay? So this creates a mistrust, that how many times I have to tell about myself, how many times I have to go through with the same process again and again. So that hampers a lot in proper reintegration processes. Then regular in-depth follow-up. When I say regular and in-depth, means it really needs to be not just going and visiting there whether the child is there or not, whether he's or she is smiling or not. Need to actually go in depth. Next slide, please. The next challenge was stereotypes, social judgment, which leads to social mistrust and community level stigma and discrimination, as well as self-blaming. So here also, sensitization programs and campaigns, radio, TV, etc. So that's there. Encourage and promote survivors to be involved into the reintegration process. So it's very crucial that their participation into the reintegration process, not just for the sake of participation, but a meaningful participation, is very much important. Reintegration services should also mobilize community leaders, including religious leaders in the community where they live in. Then if they are facing discrimination at the school or at any institutions, then the reintegration providers should intervene and talk to those kind of institutions, and also general reintegration programs in collaboration with the community health services and develop referral pathways. So it's very important again, because as a destination organization, you don't have contact in the source. You can't do follow up. You can't see the child or the survivor every now and then. So you need to have a referral system there at the source. Okay, and it has to be a very strong referral system, right? And when I say campaigns, awareness programs, sensitization programs, it's not just for the sake of awareness. We have done lots of awareness since last 15-20 years. We have been continued doing awareness. We need to focus more on behavioral change aspect, whether our awareness is impacting on the behaviors of the communities, behaviors of the families, behaviors of the survivors or not. So that's the key thing that we need to think about. Next slide, please. Then behavioral challenges faced by child sexual victims of child sexual exploitation, and it is important that to provide them the information. That communication is very key, either with the survivors or with the families or the communities where they are going to reintegrate. That know how this reintegration program works. Okay, once they have the faith in it, once they develop a slight trust in this process, the reintegration will be much easier. It should also include moral education, self-esteem programs, life skill programs, so that they can develop relationship in their surroundings. Integration practitioners must make regular home visits to inform victims' families about the rights, dignity, how to avoid discrimination. So this is just one part of it. Again, they should also organize multidisciplinary meetings, because again, it's not just livelihood services, it's not just psychosocial service, it's also health, it's also education, it's also their own grounding in the community. So it requires a multifaceted approach with multi stakeholders. So that kind of regular multidisciplinary meetings needs to be organized also for successful integration. Next slide, please. I think economic reintegration, I'm not going into much detail about it, but a need assessment is very much important. What can work in the place where they are going to be integrated. It's not that what availability we have. Okay, so we might have availability of let's say a beautician course, a skill on beautician, but that beautician program will not provide them an income where they are if they are going to be placed in a reintegrated in a rural remote area. So we need to think about those kind of needs that actually provide them employment, and I would say gainful employment. It's not just employment. Then regular follow-up visits, not only to survivors but also to their employers, and staff members of that employment place also needs to be trained about how to avoid discrimination, how to support the survivors. Next slide, please. For the government, I think these are some standard things, but state parties also should introduce in standards, or if they already have enforced it on reintegration, and also provide resources for that. It's very much important. So you develop a SOP, but there is no resource to for application of that SOP. So until as that resource is given, and mind it, whatever resource that we have, we can't match with the vastness of this problem, and also the vastness of resource that government may have. So we need to kind of advocate on that line also. And also we need to advocate for that the government should thoroughly assess the reasons and root causes and try to prevent at the source or at the transit. So prevention program is very much important. Mass awareness on legal provisions are also important. and also programs to create skills and education for the young children, and then generate opportunities for entrepreneurship and job placement. Next slide, please. Boys reintegration.
Rajiv,
Again,
sorry to interrupt. Maybe we should start to wrap up the presentation, because it's good also that people can still ask you some questions. Just
last
yeah.
couple of slides, I guess. Just last couple of slides. All right. So boys all as well, that you need to have massive awareness programs, and issue related to sex, sexuality, and masculinity also needs to be included into the academic curriculum. Next slide, please. So key takeaways from this presentation is it is important to have survivor participation. It is important to have networking and referral mechanism, and it is also very, very important to have a continuity in the care process. So I think that's it.
Thank you so much, Rajiv, for that very interesting and very thorough presentation. I think that gives us all a lot to think about. I'm sure there might also be some questions from the participants about your experience. And I think we will have time for 1 or 2 questions. If anybody has a question, you can ask it in the chat, or take the floor and ask the question directly. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat.
Can I add something?
Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Rajivda, for your nice presentation. So it's not a comment on your presentation. I'm just sharing what we do, because we also rescue victims of child sexual exploitation, exploited children. Basically whose age is 12 to 18 years old. So whenever reintegration part is very, it's challenging and it's very difficult, what I understood from your research study. And we also face the same, as we also run shelter home and also work with the children or survivors. So what we do basically after enrollment at the shelter home, we do primary assessment. That means we collect the primary information of the specific survivor to assess their immediate needs. What type of support services should we provide to them? Is it health? Is it counseling or family counseling, legal counseling, or whatever support is needed, immediate need? And based on this assessment, we prepare reintegration plan, because it's not that we will provide long-term support to a survivor like 1 year, 5 years, or 10 years. So it is not possible, because it's also related with funding, and we also need to socialize the survivor in the community. In that case, we focus or give more priority on reintegration plan, and side by side, we also prepare the community and family. So in one way, we are trying to reduce the trauma of the survivors, how he or she can be integrated in the family, and side by side, we also prepare the community so that the community or family also accepts the survivor in a positive way, because it's not only the family. They have neighbors, other community leaders, because when the survivors are back to the home, the other community stakeholder, they use some bad words, so which also make the survivors more stigmatized. So for this, we also do some local level advocacy and also do some meetings. So it's both way to prepare the community, prepare the family and also prepare the survivor if we want to reintegrate the survivor in a effective way and protect them from further victimization. Thank you. So it's just my experience sharing.
Thank you, Shubrina. I think you are right about it. And when it comes to assessment, we also need to be thinking about that the context changes, and therefore this assessment should not be one time. Rather, this assessment should be reviewed at periodically, so that we can add into the extra label into it. So yes, it's very important.
Thank you. I see one more question in the chat from Floris. Floris, would you like to ask your question directly? Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wow, I've been quiet too long. Never do that. Looking at the recommendation you made about continued care, like uninterrupted care, I was just wondering, like, how long would the ideal or average trajectory be in terms of reintegration? What are we looking at here? Because rightfully mentioned in the comment before as well, you are dealing with funding with a child growing up who wants to live somewhere else, perhaps, which might make it increasingly difficult, etc., etc. I know there would this is not, it would be different for each individual, no doubt, but what are we looking at?
No, I think you answered the question that each individual have different, trajectory, yeah. All right, different vulnerabilities and different kind of settings that they are going to be in. So it depends on that, but our experiences suggest that between 2 to 5 years is something that requires. And when I say continuity care, it's not by the same service provider again. Mm-hmm. All right. So, for example, in destination, when the girl is rescued or the boy is rescued, they spend some time there. All right, before their families are identified, the home assessment is done, all the processes that follows. Once they are fit to be reintegrated into their communities, then only they are sent to the reintegration process, and then transit comes into the picture. Now, this one place to another place. So when I say continuity of care, it's not just that the continuity of services, but also when the child is sent from destination to transit, whether all the documentation are also being sent or not. All right, whether the counseling reports that have been prepared by the counselors at this destination are also being summarized and sent there or not, so that the person who is dealing with the child in the transit knows from where he or she needs to start. So that's continuity again. Okay, same happens when the a girl or the child or the boy is sent from transit to source. Okay, so that's one part of continuity that needs to happen. Second is that in terms of economic continuity. So you have provided one kind of skill-based training at destination. When the child comes to at the transit, they don't have that skill available there, so they start training that child in another skill, right? So there is discontinuity. So it's getting confused most of the time. So try to bring as much community as possible, continuity as possible in that child's journey, I would say. And it requires, again, I would say that for example, if the child is rescued within 1 year of the exploitation phase, the reintegration can be achieved within 6 months or 8 months or 1 year time. But if a child has stayed longer, let's say 4 years, 3 years, then it's getting difficult. Then it requires more time, more effort to get the child reintegrated into the communities.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And indeed, there's no one-size-fits-all formula, unfortunately, in our work. I would like to now ask Rizel Tenorio from Let's Care organization, a Dutch Filipino NGO, to present on your experiences in the Philippines with reintegration into the community. And we'll have approximately 10 minutes for this presentation. Thank you. You are muted, Risa. Risa, can you unmute your microphone?
Thank you.
Muted again for some reason.
Okay. So is everyone can hear me, or?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. So again, it is an honor for me to present our organization with you guys. So I'll just give you a brief background of our foundation. So Let Us Care Foundation is a residential care facility that caters sexually abuse survivors, children ages 5 years old to 18, all over Panay. So we started operating since June 2008, and we are located here in San Jose de Buena Vista, Antique, Philippines. So our main goal is to create a world without child abuse and free of trauma, where children can feel that they're safe, they're protected, that their rights and responsibilities were observed. So next slide, please. Yes. So currently, we have 3 remaining programs left, because we, as mentioned before, we are now in the stage of transitioning. So for Home for Girls, I would like to emphasize that we don't cater, how do I say this? Like, we don't cater children who are not being referred by authorities. So they're being referred to us by Women and Children Protection Unit of the Philippine National Police, and the local government units of, or the social workers of different local government units. So we are catering girls who are victims of sexual abuse all over Panay area, all over Panay Island. So it is composed of Iloilo, province of Antique, Aklan, Capiz, Guimaras, and yes, Negros. So in Home for Girls, they are staying here for a couple of months. So we are providing them with home life services, legal services, because most of our girls were having this filed cases or court cases. So we also are giving them educational support, medical, dental, psychological if needed, because I believe most of our victims were having this traumatic experiences. We also giving them recreational activities and social activities, wherein they can practice or regain their dignity, their self-worth. And yes, in the after the treatment, after their stay in Home for Girls, and once we see that the child and the community is ready for the reintegration, they will fall to Aftercare program, wherein these girls were being reintegrated back to their family or biological family, and or to their foster family. So they're being monitored back in their community where they're living. And yes, let's go back to the mission and vision of Let's Care. We wanted to create a better world, no, wherein we have child abuse-free community. So we are conducting advocacy campaign, no, specifically the child abuse prevention campaign. We are having this topic about children's rights and protection, proper due process of reporting if they see that there are some cases, no, of abuse in the community, where and whom to report, and what are the do's and don'ts of dealing victims of sexual abuse. And of course, we believe that most of the abuses happen within the family or the nearest, no, kin. I think 80 to 90%, no, based on our data here, 80 to 90% were how do I say this? Sorry, I forgot the term, but commonly the perpetrators are father, brothers, or nearest kin of the victim. So we are conducting awareness for organizations that composed of parents, schools, and most especially the children or students in different community. Next slide, please. So yes, based on research, based on scientific evidences, residential care facility is not effective. Whether we pour everything, no, people come and go. Staff and children are coming back and forth. So we really believe that putting a child in a family setup really gives them full potential, practice their full potential. They can really feel the sense of belongingness, no? The unexplained feeling of to a faster recovery. So, and we also observe that it's just a cycle repeats, history repeats itself. Most of, because children here in residential care facility, most especially Let's Care, as observed, we're giving everything. But community are not that ready. Families are not that ready. So there are some cases that repetitive abuses is happening. Revictimization is observed. And yes, upon admission, even though we have this pre-admission conference wherein possible custodians are identified, yet in reality, it's really different. It's really a big dilemma for Let's Care. And yes, the process of reintegration or preparing the community and the family is really a long process. It's not just one partner relationship. Now we are expecting things will be easy. It takes some time. So, and we believe by preparing a family, by giving them enough support, orienting them with the proper, or giving them proper trainings, I believe we can change the usual routine, or we can give impact, no, in the future. And children are very happy. Some of them are telling us, Tita, I was thankful that I was being raped. Then we're all shocked, no, with the statement. But most of our girls are stating that they're grateful of the programs and services that Let's Care is providing, but they cannot hide the feeling that they're missing their families. They cannot hide the fact that they're longing for a family where they belong. So yes, so Let's Care and the local government don't have the capacity to intensively support children and families after reintegration. That's the fact. This sometimes leads to children ending up in an unsafe situation again. As mentioned, revictimization is happening, or there's occurrence. So next slide, please. So yes, for the reintegration process, before we can identify that the child is ready for reintegration, we have this set of tools that we use inside the center. We have this quarterly evaluation, self-performance rating that the child is the one answering. And we have these treatment plans, comparison, no? So quarterly it is being reviewed. What are the developments? What are the things that must be worked out pa? And the progress report that the social workers are preparing. So you can really see the consistency of the performance of the child. And of course, the anecdotal record. The anecdotal record is being prepared by our house parents. So they're the 24/7 with the children. So it's really indicated their observations, no, to these kids. So social workers that remain together with the child, no. So it's a how do I say this? We do it in partner or at the same time. Like we are getting the contributions of the child, how ready she is, being back to the community, and at the same time, aside from the written reports that we see and observe, we also have this case counseling sessions regularly done, no, to see if the child is really, consistent with her vision to go back to the community. We do home visitation, so Let's Care staff is in charge of, because we don't only rely to our partners now when it comes to assessing the community. We do it we do it ourselves, no, to really check how safe she is, no, with the new or the biological family. So we have this parenting capability assessment report done by the social workers in the region and the local government unit to see how ready the family is, no. It was stated there the economic capability of the family, the readiness of family members, the pros and cons, no, when the child is there with them. And we let the child visit, no, although they are biological families, we are giving the chance, no, we are giving the children the chance to pay a visit, no, to their families, practice the sleepover schedule, and once they're done, we are conducting counseling, assessment, and monitoring how does she feel during the sleepover. Is there any issues and concerns that she wants to bring up? And of course, we are practicing this vacations, no, summer vacation, Christmas vacation, and other occasions that we can surely see that the child is, create or how do I say this? Sorry, I'm out of words, but the building a rapport to these families, no. Case conference is being done, so stakeholders are involved. Before we officially turn over the kids to the family, we have this pre-reintegration process wherein issues and concerns were being addressed. What are the things that we have to develop and improve before we officially discharge our clients? So this year, we reintegrated 12 girls, and currently we have 11 in-house clients, and most of them are ready to go. So next slide, please. So for the reintegration support services, we are formulating this plan, no, for the family development plan for every child and family. For example, in this report, we don't give the same support in all families. So we're determining the strength and weaknesses of each family. What are the things that they are really in need, as support? So we are also checking the basic needs and shelter, of course, for their protection. Because here in the Philippines, housing security is really a question. Psychosocial support, of course, it's not that they're no longer with us. We are just, checking them from time to time, no. Because for some of them, they're still undergoing psychological evaluations, testings, and check-up. So we are also giving counseling, therapeutic activities, no, individual or group, no. We are also giving family counseling and for parents, for children, and both parties. For the family strengthening or responsible parenting, most of Filipinos, sorry to say this, but don't practice this responsible parenting. There's no course for that here. So we have this design training for this family, for dysfunctional families, no, to experience. And of course, we are supporting the education, no, or we are providing scholarship programs for our children. We are continuing the legal support, and yes, based on the assessment, what kind of livelihood projects they are in need.
Giselle,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up because we don't have a lot of time left.
Okay.
Maybe
Yes.
make some concluding remarks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. I think that's the last. Yes, for the future plans of Let's Care, we hope to reintegrate all the children from the Home for Girls and provide support to struggling families, dysfunctional families, to avoid placement of children in alternative care, identify and train foster families, and continue our advocacy campaign to create awareness and help prevent child abuse. So that's all in my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that interesting presentation. I think that gives us a lot to talk about further in the breakout rooms, particularly also your observations on how children in shelter care do express the wish that they'd like to be reintegrated into back to their families or with their uncles or aunts. So depending, of course, on the situation, but that is exactly what we want to discuss together today on how we can facilitate that or think about these processes. We still have 20 minutes in this webinar. So I'd like to ask the group if potentially people could stay maybe 10 minutes longer, 10, 15 minutes longer, because that gives us at least 20 minutes to discuss in the breakout rooms, and then we can come back together and share some conclusions, and we can also share some next steps from the Better Care Network side. I hope that is okay. If so, then I would like to ask Marit to facilitate the breakout rooms. We'll have 3, like I said. Each group has a chair. I'm one of the chairs. Christina will chair the group on stigma, and we will also have Marlou, who is chairing the group on post-reintegration practices. So we'll see you there. Okay. I think we are all back after the breakout sessions. I'd like to ask each person who took notes to maybe just very briefly give us a summary of what has been discussed. But I know that some people might have to leave before that. So I'd like to tell everybody that following this webinar, we have worked on a set of on a little summary, little brochure that provides all the guidelines and tools and videos and support that you may need to explore more about the discussions that we had today. And we really see this as a first step to collectively look at some of these issues, and hopefully we'll take many more steps together in the months to come. For now, maybe I can ask first Floris to give us a brief reflection on group number 1. If he is here.
Yeah. Sorry, I was already halfway my answer. Still muted. Let's see. The questions that we talked about were mainly focused on safety and safety for during reintegration. So the first 2 questions were, what are the conditions for a child to be safely reintegrated, and who is responsible during the progress? And I think the general answer there was something that we also saw in the presentation, which was the holistic approach, whereby all stakeholders are actually involved and also responsible for the safety of the child. So that is not just the children themselves, but the parents and the government, the community, and even the NGOs have a responsibility here. And then looking at the result in terms of the children, when do we consider a child to be successfully reintegrated? The answers were roughly managing, being able to manage your emotions, self-reliance, and following the education, and then leading to that same self-reliance, economic self-reliance. I think those were the most important conclusions, and specifically what we heard in all answers is that holistic approach where several stakeholders were involved in that in the process.
Thank you. We'll also share a report of today's session, and in that report we'll also have more information on what was discussed during the breakout sessions. Maybe now group 2, focusing on stigma. Can I ask Lara to give us a quick reflection on that?
Yes, for sure. Hi everyone. Our group was focusing on the support of the child and family members without stigmatization when reintegrating. We had different answers, but it was came all back to one conclusion, that reintegration is giving the survivors back their dignity and the identity they had before they were trafficked. It's not like reintegration is bringing these children and their families back together. How do we do that? So how do we give them back their dignity is by risk assessment. So all the partners do a reassessment of risk when the children are reintegrated with their families. Both do that with conducting how the parents are interacting with their children, life skill support, individual case management, how safe it is at home. And there was also mentioned that it's really important to make sure that all the factors contributing to the trafficked situation before, so why these children were trafficked, are also taken down. So for example, to bring access to education, to bring access to the government and government institutions of the parents, to make sure that they have, for example, a new job, and to make sure that their voices are heard so that they can speak out and other survivors are not in the same circle and the stigma is also fight.
That's great to hear. We had the same sentiment actually in our group. That's it's also important for survivors to speak up for other children, and that would really support the reintegration of all. Group number 3, Patricia, can I give you the floor?
Yes. What we discussed is that it is important for the boys and girls. They always have to have a place to go back. So sometimes there's something happening in the family you don't expect, and then it's a safe place, and they can get extra counseling or therapy to overcome where they were struggling with. And we also discussed how important it is that also for boys and girls after they're 18 years old to provide support, because you never know what will trigger something in their life. They have issues again, and that support is really a wish and a dream of many of the participants, to have good support also for these age, because it doesn't stop at 18. And we discussed about the importance for a long-term effect, also to have support in the community, less discrimination, more support, and also yeah, quite basic. So discriminations against girls in the community. So you really have to build up, and it takes time, but step by step the programs, for example, around positive parenting or against child marriage, it works, and they see changes in the community.
Thank you. I think that concludes the session on the breakout rooms. I know there's much more to discuss, and we only really hit the surface today. But like I said, there will be a report coming your way with all the information, all the tools, guidelines that we have been able to gather on this topic. And we invite you together with us to start looking into this more. I know that many of the partners are very much involved, of course, in the reintegration of children who survive sexual exploitation, and that it's in our collective interest to do that in a way that is safe, healthy, but also within a family environment, so that we know that they can prosper. Thank you for your participation today. Particular thanks to Rizel and to Rajiv for their wonderful contributions and presentations, which we will definitely share also with the wider group. Thank you for Patricia for all the interviews that you had with our partners to start exploring this topic, and for also helping organize this webinar. And if people want to know more about the Better Care Network in the Netherlands, you can find a lot of information on the website. Finally, thanks everybody for your participation and your interest, and looking forward to taking this up with you in the coming period. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.